Welcome. And again, thank you so much for being here often at weird times. I know people are joining from all over. Um, so first I'm going to start with all of us to think about something that some of us have maybe thought about a ton and some of us have maybe thought about not very much at all, which is this question of what it is a native speaker or signer. And what we know, and you're going to learn so much more about it today, is that this construct has long been problematized all over, sort of for decades, and also in so many different disciplines, and that it's rooted in problematic assumptions about language learning, and the relationship between identity and linguistic practices. It's also inconsistently defined and inaccurately treated as a natural category as opposed to a set of language ideologies. And despite the sort of overwhelming evidence that this is what's going on with this construct, many fields of language research center or valorize the linguistic knowledge and behavior of, quote, native speakers or signers. And so Ethan and I, had been sort of complaining about this and thinking about this, as I know many of you have. And we were trying to think about how can we go sort of from this theory to practice. It seems like we really know this is an issue, and yet we don't see changes as much as we want to see, especially in certain places, disciplinarily speaking. And so again, like I said, we're going to learn more about this today. We also have, there's that tiny URL there. We have a Google Scholar page that Ethan has put together of resources. Many of the folks that are presenting today are on there, and many of our sort of Roll Collective members, and I'm going to talk about in a second, are on there. And also watch out for that being updated because there's more work coming every day, including I want to highlight a paper about to come out in language by Devin Gramman and Anna Babel, talking about this as well. Okay, so let's sort of, again, we're here for buffer, we're here for intro, framing. What is the Roll Collective? Well, so Ethan and I had this conversation. We're thinking, what can we do to move from theory and practice? Well, maybe we need to come up with a working group to get this going. And so we are a group of scholars working to identify and provide alternatives to problematic, harmful, essentialist characterizations of language in language research and beyond. And we have this QR code to the website that Ethan has put together, which has a lot of resources on there as well. And so who is enrolled? Well, you can too, but there's so far 87 people who are on our listserv. And there's a bunch of us who've been working on different projects. This includes scholars across continents, disciplines, and academic ranks. And we're working together to advocate for and enact changes in research practices, assessments, in institutional contexts, and again, as beyond. And so we need to sort of work together to do this, and we're trying to figure out how we can combine forces. So what have we done? So we decided to do this in late 2022, and starting in 2023, we were sort of spreading the word. Many of you might have received emails or, from us about this. And in fall of 2023, we started meeting regularly and did some writing, including the grant that is funding this symposium and workshop, and also a consensus paper that you can find links to that coming up. In January, we had a workshop, and looking forward, we're working on trying to just do more of this, create more resources, and to try to expand our reach. So here is a link to a course statement. So we wrote two of these, one that's more general, attempting to be more public facing, and one that's attempting to be more sort of from academics to academics. So you can take a look at that and see what you think, and also our consensus paper that we're trying to figure out to send to a broad science audience. Okay, so goals from our end for today and next Friday are to foster cross-context conversations, to identify these conceptual and practical challenges for rejecting essentialist notions such as nativeness, because the issues with this differ based on the context, right? We're not going to find one single one size fits all solution to this. And to, based on the conversations today, and next week, start working on interventions and to support each other for those of us who are trying to work to make change. So when we think about this as like arming people who are trying to do this type of work with citations, some people need to see a graph to be convinced. Some people, you just need to tell them, hey, this is racist. Maybe we should think about it. And others need other types of evidence, right? So we're trying to think about what's the broadest range of evidence we can marshal and identify that based on the context that we're trying to intervene in. And so I will, end my part of this and then, shoot it over to Ethan to get us going. But I wanted to just put some of these questions up. These are questions that we've asked ourselves and each other and our panelists, and we're going to ask all of you. And so these are the questions that have been driving us in this work. Particularly the bottom, which is, what do we need to move from theory to practice? Because the way that we're sort of seeing it is the papers have been written. I mean, of course we need to do more, but they've been written. And in some cases, we just need to think about how can we go to change. So I will leave that up for a second. And Ethan, why don't you get us started? Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Savi. And thank you all so much for being here and for your support. This is really exciting for the Role Collective, for Savi, for me. We've been dreaming about today for a very long time. And so these are the questions. We will be circulating these questions throughout the symposium, both today and next Friday. But Savi, if you can go to the next slide, then I can walk you guys through a little bit of the logistics that how we envision the Role Collective to function. And one of our goals is always checking with ourselves and making sure that our language aligns with the values that we want to support, and we do not cause harmful interpretations of our data, theories, and methodologies. So the biggest part of today, we will be learning from scholars who have been challenging these notions in their own areas and collectively learn from their own experiences. We also have fantastic 5-minute or short presentations that will be in the afternoon for our time in North American time. So you're seeing right now the schedule for today, but basically to be ready to learn from these fantastic scholars. The first part of today, we will have 3 talks, and then we'll have a 30-minute-ish break. And then we have 2 additional talks, and then the afternoon will be a little bit more separated with the short talks in the middle of the afternoon session. For the entire workshop, we remind you that everything is recording. So we are currently actually recording this entire symposium on multiple computers. Our goal is to make these available to you as soon as possible by early next week so that you'll be prepared for the workshop next Friday. We also ask that if you can scan this QR code, we will also send that link in the chat. But if you can give us your feedback from today, then we will be prepared for next Friday in better ways. And that is in a way that we want to make sure that our breakout rooms are structured in a way that the emerging questions that are coming or are shaped from today's conversations can be carried to next Friday so that we can collectively work on solutions. So please keep an eye on that survey and please scan this QR code. And again, we will be circulating those throughout today's conversations. If you can go to the next one, Savi, that would be fantastic. So for for today, we had over 250 registrants. It's a fantastic number. We worked on it on a very short timeline, but the amount of support that we're receiving from you guys, from our community, is just so encouraging. Again, everything will be recorded. There is a reason why we're asking everyone to keep their cameras and microphones off. It's to help us navigate this system. There are certain pros and cons using an online virtual environment. One of the things that we talked about is that maybe if you can eliminate the interference of when folks are coming in, that might help us to transition smoothly from one talk to the other one. So we ask that you keep your cameras and microphones off. So currently you're not able to open those, but however, we want to emphasize that if for folks who would like to find their questions, please send a quick message to our technical support, Lauren Andrews. I will leave that in the chat in a second. If you let us know, then we can authorize you, and then you can ask your question through while opening your camera on. Aside from that, we ask that you pose your questions in the Q&A box, and then everything about in terms of communicating with other folks, chatting with each other, feel free to use the chat box, but please keep your questions in the Q&A box. If you have any technical difficulties, please message Lauren Andrews or me, or Sabi will be immediately ready to help you. And then we can go to the next slide, Sabi. The most important thing for us is to ensure that everyone is acknowledged and everyone has a safe space here. So we have this code of conduct, which also is in the program, and you can find that program through our website. The important part is that we ask that if you are not happy with a structure, with a comment, or something is happening and you want to share with us, please send us immediately a private message. You can again immediately message Sabi, me, or our fantastic helpers of this organizers, the organizing committee, Emerson, Parth, and Lauren. They're all happy to help you out, or you can email me or Sabi if you would like to report something. So please make sure that that you have this information saved somewhere. You can go to the next one. Since the conversations today and next Friday will be on topics that are highly relevant to all of us, and we are collectively working on better, finding solutions. We ask that you respect each other's opinions and do so in an inclusive way. So please, if you cannot word your question in an inclusive way, we ask that you refrain asking those, and thinking a little bit more, and then bringing it back once you have that inclusivity included. We also expect all participants to follow these guidelines for today and also next Friday, and please make sure that this online space is respectful for everybody. One last thing, we will prioritize early career folks when during the Q&A session, or anytime there's something that's emerging. So if you are willing to share that you're an early career researcher, please put ECR in your Zoom handle, and that will help us identify you. But again, this is just a personal preference. If you do not want to do that, that is also totally fine. We would like to thank our organizers. We had a fantastic, of course, the Roll Collective, and also members of Roll Collective. Their names are listed here. And of course, our folks at the University of Iowa and University of Michigan who are helping us. And this entire symposium is happening thanks to funds that we received from National Science Foundation. So we are very grateful for their support of this work. I think that is all from my end. Sabi, do you have any other additions? We'll leave that survey link for another second on the screen maybe, and then we'll transition to our very first talk.
Yeah, we'll bring this back at the end as well, since that's when it will be most relevant. Yeah, that sounds good. Okay, that's good for me. So I will stop my sharing and we'll transition. How's that sound?